Did you intentionally injure your dog so that you could raise money from a GoFundMe site?
Hear me, sit down. Sit down, put your butt all the way to there.
Imagine scamming $2 million from the government, only for one of your friends to post the entire crime on social media and get you caught by the police as a result.
And these guys since 2014 have been harassing us.
There are many scammers, fraudsters, and impersonators out there who will stop at nothing to separate you from your hard-earned cash. Some are cunning, while others are just downright audacious. These include fake GoFundMes, police impersonators, and entire scam call centers. But some of them can be sloppy and have faced punishment for their crimes. Join us as we have a look at scammers who were caught in the act. Number 12. GoFundMe for a dog. While GoFundMe serves many worthy causes, some will exploit it, turning it into GoFraudMe, as some news outlets would call it. Reed Herjo's tragic tale about his 13-week-old puppy Atlas touched the hearts of 693 generous donors, which netted him over $14,000. He claimed that both of Atlas's hind legs were shattered in a hit-and-run incident that involved an ATV. However, there was no accident. Investigations would reveal the grim truth. The dog's legs had been fractured because he hurt the poor puppy himself. It all began in January of 2018. He would be pulled over for speeding, telling officers that he was taking his 14-week-old German Shepherd to a hospital. He said the puppy had been struck by an ATV, and later investigations would contradict the account, with authorities suspecting the injuries were not due to an accident but purposeful abuse. Lieutenant Arthur Waterman from the Medford Township Police Department stated that an inquiry revealed Atlas's injuries were inconsistent with the claims, which indicated potential mistreatment. More investigations would confirm the deliberate harm to Atlas, and then the police would find out about the fake GoFundMe. GoFundMe declared that he had breached the terms of service, vowing refunds for all donors. They also banned him from the platform, collaborating with law enforcement for the ongoing inquiry. A neighbor had expressed hope that the ill-gotten gains would be returned to the donors who were swindled for the vet bill. Herjo faced charges of animal cruelty and theft. He would be confronted by media after court and did not respond to questions, ultimately pleading guilty to animal cruelty. Number 11. Fake cancer claim. This is the case of 38-year-old Jeremiah Smith, who had claimed that he was dying of cancer. The story would deeply move people, and they donated to his GoFundMe account, even with his wife believing him. But he was never sick. He spent the $23,000 that he raised on video games, marijuana, and settling credit card debt. He admitted to the theft and would be charged with a felony, but due to his clean record, he was expected to only receive probation. Police would receive a tip in May of 2016, suspecting Smith after a series of successful fundraisers that were held for him. The events collected substantial sums, and the county attorney said that Smith had orchestrated the deceitful fundraisers without revealing his fake condition. His wife was not in on the game, but she did draw doubtful when she could not find any medical records to prove the claims. Despite Smith's promises to provide medical evidence, it never happened, and this led to a search warrant that confirmed his deception about having cancer. His actions not only conned numerous kind-hearted donors, but also sowed doubt amongst those who were closest to him. The court had found him guilty of deceit and misuse of the trust that had been bestowed upon him by sympathizers who sought to help him in a time of apparent need. GoFundMe claims that misuse is an uncommon occurrence, but they have policies in place in order to address it. In situations of misuse, they ensure the refund of donations, and Smith would be banned from the platform as well. Number 10. News anchor plays with credit card scammer. Fox 5's Jeanette Reyes used her anchor voice to counter a potential scammer who had contacted her. The caller falsely claimed that she would face arrest if she didn't settle an alleged outstanding balance of over $2,000. Recognizing the deception, she decided to have a little fun. The Federal Trade Commission says that scams are prevalent, and scammers employ various methods like phone calls, text, and even email to try and extract money from people. These scammers may resort to threatening arrest, legal action, revocation of license, or even deportation. They might even say that your computer is in imminent danger of being compromised. Fortunately, the scammer was not so subtle, and Jeanette spotted it a mile away. Number 9. COVID relief fraudsters couldn't stop flexing. 8 men from Brooklyn fraudulently obtained $2 million in COVID relief funds and openly displayed the gains on social media. Between June of 2020 and April of 21, these individuals filed fraudulent unemployment insurance claims with the New York State Department of Labor. They had exploited the personal details of others in order to gain access to pandemic-related benefits funded partially or entirely by pandemic assistance programs. The scammers were audacious in showcasing their ill-gotten gains, which amounted to around $2 million. The money was distributed amongst the scammers and others who were involved in the scheme. 6 of them, aged 18 to 25, would be arrested and subsequently appeared before a judge, and they were all then released on $75,000 bond. They would be caught because 4 of them could not stop showing off. They drew attention by posting photos on social media where they were seen brandishing substantial stacks of cash. In the post, they flaunted wads of $100 bills, either in front of cars or while covering their faces. Legal charges of fraud were leveled against each of them, with surveillance videos capturing them making withdrawals at ATMs using fraudulent debit cards, with each withdrawal amounting to thousands of dollars. 2 of the men, along with a co-conspirator, had used over 3 dozen debit cards in other individuals' names in order to withdraw more than $26,000. Filipino call center raid. In a Philippines call center located on the outskirts of Metro Manila, staff members are actively engaged in calling people up. The call center was suspected to have connections to multi-million-dollar scams that targeted Australians' retirement savings. One notable scam involved the misuse of genuine details from a company that was controlled by financial giant AMP without proper authorization. The victims explained that the scam was set up to resemble a trustworthy financial advisory firm, using methods like cloning and other misleading tactics, making it seem regulated in Australia. The scam would catch attention of authorities, and ongoing investigations were conducted. The Australian Securities and Investments Commission confirmed that some investigations were in advanced stages. At the Manila call center, the staff sat closely together, following detailed scripts to gather personal information about people from far away. However, their work routine was about to be interrupted by police. The raid in the Philippines would be initiated after a criminal complaint was filed representing 6 Australian victims. The Australian cybercrime investigator Ken Gamble was there to see the raid for himself. He mentioned that his presence was to witness the anti-cybercrime group executing a lawful search warrant. Staff members pretended to be from Melbourne. They had scripts on their screens, and Ken had a conversation with one of the agents to understand the entire process of how they communicated and persuaded Australians to provide details about their money. According to the victims, they stated they had lost $3.3 million due to 2 scams that involved their money, and the fraudulent activities were connected to the Philippines call center. Gamble said that the call center served as the initial point, collecting information that was then forwarded on to another group. The data would be used to contact people posing as fake financial planners, claiming to have extensive knowledge about setting up self-managed super funds, and he emphasized their high expertise in the area, which enabled them to create convincing and legitimate-looking scams. Number 7. Impersonating a U.S. Marshal. A Marion County Sheriff's Office corporal was refueling at a gas station when he heard unusual sounds and spotted a black pickup truck with red and blue emergency lights recklessly driving around cars and ignoring a red light. He got suspicious, and so he followed the truck and pulled it over for a traffic stop. Body camera footage from the sheriff's office would show the corporal approaching the driver and requesting identification. The sheriff's deputy found holes in the imposter's story, and then, to the imposter's horror, a genuine U.S. Marshal arrived. The real U.S. Marshal began questioning the imposter, who could not provide any valid information. The impersonator couldn't even specify which district he was associated with, which was the tipping point that blew his cover for good. The man couldn't even answer simple questions, and the jig was up. During the encounter, he provided information that raised suspicion amongst the deputies, and they concluded that he was falsely impersonating a marshal. When searching his truck, they discovered a firearm and prescription medication hidden within his wallet. He lacked a valid prescription for the medication. Law enforcement officials would emphasize how important it is to take these fraud cases seriously. He's being removed from the streets, and it lowers the risk of people being fooled by him. The driver would be arrested, facing multiple charges, which included impersonation of a law enforcement officer, misuse of emergency lights, misuse of a badge, possession of a firearm, and many others, and he now is in a detention facility. Number 6. Spying on scammers. A call center that had targeted numerous British victims would be raided by Indian police following an investigation by the BBC's Panorama. Their investigation involved hacking into the call center and obtaining footage of the employees blatantly ripping people off. They were charging individuals substantial amounts of money to address fake computer issues. The owner of the call center denied any fraudulent activity but was taken into custody after the raid. The call center, in a suburb of Delhi, had been engaging in scams that affected victims in the UK, the United States, and Australia. The BBC obtained recordings of over 70,000 calls. They helped to prove in great detail the extent of the scams. Indian police sought out British individuals who had been defrauded by the call center, and one victim fell for the scam after encountering a false notification on his computer claiming it was infected with explicit spyware. India is littered with call centers employing hundreds of thousands of people. However, there are quite a few that are running scams. Law enforcement finds prosecuting these crimes challenging because the victims are overseas and they rely on evidence from the victims to press charges. Panorama sourced evidence through a digital crusader named Jim Browning, who hacked into the call center system and gained control over its CCTV cameras. Number 5. Jeremy DeWitt, the police impersonator. Meet Jeremy DeWitt, an infamous serial police impersonator who cannot help himself from getting into trouble. DeWitt worked for Metro State Special Services, which offered motorcycle escorts for funerals and VIPs, and the website shows they have a fleet of marked motorcade units, which include patrol cars and motorcycles, equipped with advanced communications and police-style LED lights and sirens. And they've even crafted badges resembling those that are used by the Los Angeles Police Department. Although their website makes strong reference, they stop short of explicitly claiming to provide security services due to legal limitations. Both DeWitt and many of his staff members have felony records, making them ineligible for security licenses. The primary role revolves around funeral escort. They entail guiding funeral processions to cemeteries while managing traffic at intersections to ensure the procession remains intact from start to finish. They possess no legal authority to enforce traffic laws or conduct a traffic stop. Surprisingly, there exists a multitude of videos in which DeWitt performs exactly these unauthorized tasks. He wears a body camera, so the police and the entire internet have access to footage showcasing his abuse of non-existent power in great detail. It's a goldmine of footage of memorable moments, and it shows his enthusiasm for masquerading as a police officer. His approach to situations in which he pulls individuals over is anything but professional, and he has a very bad case of road rage. This has led to him being arrested more times than not, like this one, where he's arrested for openly carrying what seems to be a firearm. What makes DeWitt stand out would be his short temper. Whenever he gets arrested for his crimes, he's constantly yelling at police officers who are making the arrest. His impersonation does not stop at law enforcement, though. He also enjoys role-playing as a soldier and has repeatedly recounted his supposed service in the Army Special Forces and the dramatic story of parachuting into Fallujah. His office features the Army and Special Forces flags behind his desk, and numerous photographs depict him in Army dress uniform. However, the truth is, he never served in the military. Number 4. DeWitt strikes again. Jeremy DeWitt's encounters with law enforcement continue to unfold. In a video captured by a Chicago police officer's body camera in the summer of 2019, he is arrested once again. The police took him into custody for unauthorized traffic stops while he was overseeing a funeral procession for his company, but he maintained his innocence. He made another appearance on camera, where this time it did not involve his helmet cam during a traffic stop. The incident traces back to June of 2019, when a tow truck driver contacted the police. He alleged that DeWitt had hurled chairs at him from a fourth-floor building while the driver was attempting to tow his vehicle. Upon the arrival of law enforcement, DeWitt claimed to be a member of law enforcement himself. Following an agreement between DeWitt and the tow truck operator not to pursue charges, in exchange for an apology, another officer would intervene. As usual, DeWitt was not able to keep his cool. Consequently, he would be taken into custody, facing charges of aggravated assault and damage to a vehicle, and upon his arrest, he was listed as a special agent. Number 3. DeWitt faces insurance fraud. While Jeremy DeWitt may have set aside his Metro State motorcycle, the legal system is still pursuing the convicted police impersonator. He's been charged with so many things to keep track of at this point. Not only has he violated probation and been arrested for impersonating police, but he also was arrested for failing to register as a sex offender. And now it turns out that his company may have been involved in insurance fraud. Investigative efforts resulted in the filing of nearly a dozen charges. They revolve around allegations of a years-long fraudulent activity through his funeral escort business that was aimed at deceiving insurance companies. The initial accusations focus on the registration of his company vehicles. According to an arrest affidavit, he registered some of his Metro State vehicles under his wife's name with multiple insurance companies, categorizing them as personal vehicles. The move seemingly aimed to avoid higher charges associated with vehicles used for business, and DeWitt's wife clarified to the police that she was not involved in the application process for any of the vehicles. An employee from one of the insurance companies would reveal to a detective that if the truth about the sirens, lights, and decals on his vehicles had been disclosed, the insurance policy would not have been granted. DeWitt's conduct represents a common insurance fraud scheme. Investigators found that although the vehicles were registered to Metro State with the government, DeWitt had failed to update his sex offender registration, as required by law, within the mandated 48-hour period. At the same time, detectives were investigating his vehicle registration while gathering evidence that he was also defrauding companies by presenting exaggerated damage estimates from crash scenes. For one crash in Orlando in May of 2020, he submitted photos and invoices to an insurance company and initially claiming that his employee was driving the car during the incident. However, he gave a conflicting version of events to another insurance company. Recorded statements from DeWitt would suggest that he was actually driving the vehicle himself. The report indicated that he had submitted multiple photos of the damage, but metadata analysis revealed these images were actually captured in 2017 and 2019, a few years before the crash had occurred. He also presented an invoice for repairing his vehicle's lights. Detectives would notice that this invoice matched a previous fraudulent claim that he had made for an incident in Polk County in 2018. And even though the date would be removed, the invoice number remained the same, indicating a potential link. Investigators reported that for the crash that occurred in May of 2020, he received a total of over $9,000 from an insurance company. The amount included a $2,000 check for injury claims, even though he was not the one driving the vehicle at the time. Around 5 months later, he allegedly repeated the same fraudulent act with a different insurance company, submitting some of the same photos and invoices that he had used the following in the May crash. Amongst the submissions were an invoice for a motorcycle parts, which raised suspicion because he was driving a Chevy Tahoe. The case would eventually be settled for $10,000. Investigators would conduct interviews with both the other driver and his passenger, and according to statements, DeWitt was intentionally responsible for the crash by accelerating into the back of another car. The passenger reported that DeWitt confessed to deliberately causing the crash in order to file an insurance claim for financial gains. Number 2. YouTuber hacks into CCTV and busts scammers. Now, we all know about scam call centers in India, but for some reason, they attract the attention of internet vigilantes. One such vigilante is a YouTuber who managed to hack the CCTV cameras of an Indian scam ring. He took it upon himself to shut the ring down, and that required a lot of evidence. He collected substantial evidence of fraudulent activity in the 20-minute video he published to YouTube. The footage revealed scammers impersonating Best Buy's Geek Squad tech support in their office, culminating in their arrest by local police in Punjab, India. The scam ring's office appeared quite typical, with rows of desks separated by dividers, and at various times there were 2 to 5 individuals in the room, some wearing headsets while others were eating at the central table. These employees were young, likely in their 20s or 30s, wearing casual clothing and sometimes dressed in slacks. In the video, multiple instances of alleged scam calls are observable, showcasing the scammers engage with potential victims. These scammers would call the victims, take a break to eat, and then return to the victim with an exaggerated charge, claiming to have installed a fake firewall for a substantial fee. Another person from the operation then contacts the victim, reassuring them that everything has been resolved and a year-long safety program has been implemented. The total cost for the deceitful services is around $300 or so, covering all taxes and additional charges. After gathering enough evidence, The man reached out to multiple police stations in the Punjab area and then informed all the defrauded victims about the scam. The video concludes with scenes of police officers entering the building, shutting down the electricity on the first and second floors, and arresting 5 key scammers. Number 1. Fraudster faked his death and fled to Scotland. This man faked his own death and moved to the UK with a new name. He claims to be an Englishman, and to prove it, he put on tweed clothing, a baker boy cap, and an unconvincing English accent.
I am off tonight, and this is my wife. We're on tonight.
In reality, he is from Rhode Island. He had faked his death because he wanted to avoid sex and fraud charges that were against him. He used various aliases and fabricated a story of terminal cancer, which resulted in his staged death in February of 2020, while facing investigations across multiple U.S. states. However, it didn't end there. He went as far as writing and publishing his own obituary in order to make the fake death appear authentic. Police insist the man is not who he says he is, but he's committed to the role, denying any claims of being the criminal. He's so confident that he's invited anyone who thinks that he's the criminal over to his place for a cup of tea, supposedly to discuss his fraudulent identity. The entire public got to see this act in a very odd television interview with NBC. In the interview, the man sat beside his English wife, stating that he's never set foot in the United States. Amidst recovery from a severe bout of COVID-19 that would lead to his arrest in a Scottish hospital, he wore an oxygen mask and claimed to be too weak to walk. Before the interview, he was caught by Interpol in Scotland while being hooked up to a ventilator. Police would confirm without a shadow of doubt that his tattoo scars unveiled his true identity. Yet for some reason, he still insisted he was the Englishman. When asked to briefly remove his mask for a better look at his face, he complied, and unsurprisingly, he was the spitting image of the criminal. Additionally, the interviewer requested him to display his arms to disprove having multiple recognizable tattoos. However, he dodged the request by rolling his sleeves just above the elbow, avoiding a clear display of his upper arms. He would not reveal his upper arms, where the scars from tattoo removal were believed to have existed, and a reason that exposing more would require removing his oxygen mask. During an interview, he continued to insist he'd never been to the United States, despite utilizing an American phone number while residing in England and defrauding Canadian food personalities. Texts, images, and emails revealed how he had fabricated 2 dogs and numerous illnesses and sent photos of his wife in the hospital to evade the work that he had promised. All of this based on credentials he never actually possessed. Let us know if we missed anything, and be sure to subscribe and like for more in the future.